In this video, we'll look at more problems involving elastic and inelastic collisions. Let's take a look at this first example. So we've got two balls, X and Y, which have masses of 15 and 20 grams respectively. So we'll mark this mass of X is 15, mass of Y is 20. They're both moving at 0.6 meters per second towards each other. So the initial velocity of X we'll say is going towards the right, and the initial velocity of Y we'll say in the opposite direction, coming towards it. So after collision, X rebounds at 0.3 meters per second. So we can say that the velocity of X will be in the opposite direction to its original direction. So the question asks, what is the velocity of Y after the collision? So we're after the velocity of Y afterwards. And we also need to determine whether or not the collision is elastic or inelastic. So for the first part of the problem, we'll use conservation of momentum. And for the second part, we use conservation of kinetic energy. So the first thing we want to do is a sketch and make sure it's well annotated. So remember, the mass doesn't change afterwards. Okay, and I should put that as -3. So to answer part A, we need to substitute our values into our equation for conservation of momentum. Okay, and don't forget again to make sure we include our negatives. Okay, and since we've got a positive value, we know that the velocity of Y after the collision is to the right. Now we'll go on to part B. So for part B, we use our conservation of kinetic energy equation. And I want to see if the sum of kinetic energy beforehand is equal to the sum of the kinetic energy afterwards. So I'm going to break these into two and compare the values. Okay, so I'm going to substitute in my values. And then solve. Okay, now I'll do the kinetic energy afterwards. And I know from the previous question that the velocity of Y afterwards was 0.075. So in this example, we can see that the sum of the kinetic energy beforehand does not equal the sum of the kinetic energy afterwards, and it's a significant drop. Therefore, kinetic energy is not conserved, and that means our collision is inelastic.